Right. Good evening, everybody. How are
Good
you guys
evening.
doing? Right. Welcome to Investors Copy Time. Tonight is Crypto Night. So we have Andrew Wong with us, our crypto futurist. So anything crypto, look for Andrew. Right. He's been updated with so much things going on, and things are getting updated so fast. I mean, how do you catch up with things, Andrew?
You sleep very little. You read a lot. You spend a lot of time on social media, and you read a lot.
Yeah, I guess it's very active on Twitter, isn't it? I think most of these guys are on Twitter most of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Twitter. They call it CT, crypto Twitter. In
Hmm.
fact, the CEO 𝐂𝐫𝐲𝐠 himself is a big fan of Bitcoin.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so again, if you want to ask anything on crypto, what's happening in crypto world, just ask Andrew. All right. So before we start, today's topic is going to be about the future of finance, right? And Andrew actually has prepared something for you guys, and to learn, to give you a glimpse of what's probably going to happen in the finance or in the finance market. Looking at future, right? So you have a glimpse of what's probably going to happen, and I believe that Andrew has also done a lot of research and see what's going on outside of Malaysia, right? So what we want to do is we don't want to be what the Malay say, kata di bawah tempurung, right? We do not know what's happening outside, and it just suddenly come and hit us. So this will be some, a glimpse of what probably can happen and is already happening outside of Malaysia. All right. So before we start, we have our disclaimer. Whatever that is being presented here or discussed here today is for educational and informational purposes only. Is not intended as any investment advice. All right. And for those who have just joined us, please do like and follow our Facebook page so that you can get updates whenever we go live. Okay, like we mentioned, we have also going to have quite a number of workshops for you guys, right? And it's brought to you by Bursa Malaysia. And we're going to have a series of workshops in both English and Mandarin. So like our Facebook page, if you go to the events page, you'll be able to see the events coming up from Bursa Malaysia. And not only that, we also have other workshops coming for you guys, right? Including the futures market as well. So please help us to share with your friends so they too will be able to benefit from the education, from the discussions that we're going to have with the panel of experts. And of course, tonight we're going to talk about crypto, all right? So please like our page and don't forget to follow us to get notification. Now, also we are also on streaming on YouTube. So if if you're on YouTube, please do subscribe to our channel, and also please share with your friends so that they too can benefit from these sessions that we have daily, all right, at 8 p.m. All right. Okay, so Andrew, I'm gonna come back to you, right? So maybe you want to explain what give a glimpse, or maybe just explain a bit what are we gonna cover tonight, right?
Sure. We're talking about the building the future of finance, right? Wait, is there a market update? I think I saw one of the comments asking for a market
Oh
update
yeah,
from
yeah.
Bitcoin.
I thought I want to do it somewhere in the middle. But if you guys want a market update, okay lah, we'll do a market update lah first, right? Okay. Let's do a
Daniel too asked for it.
Daniel too. Okay. Okay lah. There's nothing much going on anyway, but I'm just gonna share with you guys lah. Okay. All right. So Bitcoin. You can see at the chart, right? So it has not been moving in the past 2-3 weeks. It's just going sideways, right? But the good thing is that it is still above the moving average. It's still above the trend line, which means that the trend is still bullish, right? The only thing what we are seeing now is a correction of the bullish trend. So we are seeing the price going sideways right now. Okay. And the resistance to beat, right, for the trend to continue going higher will be $10,400, right? So if you can break above that level, guess what? Again, this is not an investment advice, right? This is just a forecast based on technical indicators. So now, based on this triangle pattern over here, right? If the price is able to break above 10,400 points, then we may see it going to 12,400. and that's based on the triangle pattern. Now, if it can break out above 10,004, that's the level it should beat, right? But if the price unable to climb above 10,400, let's say in the next 1 month, it shows weaknesses and the price may pull back for a correction, a further correction, right? Probably a bigger sideways correction, and the price may pull back a little bit towards the support level at 8,200. All right, so it's either going to break 10,004, or the market is just going to be quiet about it, and then the price pulls back, go below 9,002, and then if it breaks below 9,002, then it will go to 8,002. All right, so that's Bitcoin. Ethereum also has been going sideways in the past 3 weeks. Okay, the level to beat is this purple line over here, which is $254, right? That was a recent high. So if it can break above 254, then there's a high chance that it can continue climbing higher to this next resistance level, which was the high early in February, right, at $287. Okay, so that if it can break above 254, all right. But if it cannot break above 254, then it's probably going to pull back to the uptrend support level, right, around 223. Okay, if let's say the next 2 or 3 weeks, or even maybe the next 1 week, if the price cannot climb above 254, then it should pull back to around 223, 224. All right, so that's Ethereum. Most of the cryptocurrencies are still in an uptrend, okay? It's just that it's in the correction right now. Okay, Litecoin continue to stay sideways. Not much movement over here, but it's still above the moving average. It is still considered an uptrend, but a very slow uptrend, right? So I'm going to expect probably Litecoin to continue to trade between this range of 41 and 50. Okay, if the price can break above 50, then the price may go higher. Right now, based on this triangle pattern, the level to look at, if the price is able to break above $50, then it should go to around $62. Okay, based on that triangle pattern as well. Okay, so there are resistance levels that the cryptocurrencies have to break before we see a continuation. So if it doesn't break above those levels I mentioned, then we're going to expect further correction. All right, so that's the update for these 3 cryptocurrencies. Okay. All right, Andrew, back to you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, here we are. Let me just present. Okay. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. So tonight we're going to talk about building the future of finance. Whether it's the way we do things, the infrastructure, right? So disclaimer, as Benny said, this is for educational purposes only. I'm not telling you to go out and buy crypto assets or cryptocurrencies. If you do decide to look into that, please consult with your financial professional. Okay. So let's see. So for the last, so Benny already showed the technicals, but this one just shows, where it's been in the last 1 month, right? 11th of May, right through to 7 p.m. today. That shows you, we were still working on the on this deck at 7 p.m. Okay, so it's actually up 12.5%, right? So if you had bought a month ago, right, and you just left it, it's up 12.5%. It's at currently 9,700. Yeah, so it's finding it hard to break that 10,000 barrier, right? Okay, so let's start with let's go to what everybody knows, right? 10 years ago, how do you get a car loan, right? You go to a showroom, or you go to a second-hand car dealer, and you see a car that you like, or you might check out a car that maybe one of your friends want to sell, and then you realize, okay, that's a nice car, I want to get it. Then you try and get a car loan. Now, what's the process like, right? Let me just walk you through that process. You would have to go to a bank, right? And then obviously you'd have to fill out forms. Well, first of all, you You go there and you gotta, or these days you gotta go there. You gotta scan the QR code, and then you gotta take your temperature and all that, right? And then key in your details. Then you take a number and then you wait, right? And these days the wait is even longer because only limited people are allowed inside the bank. So you go to the bank, you'd have to fill out forms, right? You have to fill out a form, an application form. Actually, while we're talking about this, right, maybe put in the comments below, how many of you actually enjoy your banking experience? If you do, just put a thumbs up, right? Thumbs up that you love and you enjoy the banking experience so far. Okay, thumbs down if you.
I haven't been to the bank to do banking business for a very long time, right? The only time when I go is just to maybe do some banker's check, and that's it. If only needed to.
Yeah. So look, just put in the comment section, right? If you enjoy your banking experience and you love the banking experience, thumbs up. Otherwise, put a thumbs down, right? So you'd have to fill out a form. Then if you approve, you got the car loan, right? And this depends how long, which bank you go to, your banking relationship and all that, right? It takes a while. And if not, right, if the car loan got rejected, what do you do? You went to another bank, right? And so that's a typical cycle, right? Of then you waited again. Now this has not changed in decades, right? This has been the standard, the SOP of getting a car loan. Now, until now. So I'm going to tell you a story about this guy named Mariano Conti, right? And how he got his car loan. Right? Now, this was an interesting story. So this one, right? So he drew a loan from himself. Now try to follow, right? He used his own assets as collateral, and then he paid himself back. You're like, what? Huh? So basically, Mariano had quite a substantial amount of Ether, right? Ethereum, right? Because he is a crypto enthusiast. In fact, he works for a company called MakerDAO, and he had a lot of he had a lot of Ether. Actually, I'll just digress a little bit and tell you a story about a story within a story, right? So in 2017, I actually I met a friend, or 2016 I met a friend, 16 or 17 in Melbourne, Australia. And this guy was in his, young guy, really smart chap, switched on. He was in his 20s, and he was a Solidity programmer. So he was a coder, right? And he was from England. So I met him at one of these crypto talks. And I said, so what are you doing here in Australia? Oh, he was traveling, he was working all over the place. But now he's settled here in Melbourne, Australia. And so he said that he was on a tourist visa. He came because his girlfriend is Aussie, right? And his girlfriend wanted to come back to Melbourne, so he followed the girlfriend back. He works for a company that is out in San Jose, Silicon Valley, and he's British, and he was living in Melbourne, Australia, because his girlfriend wanted to come. And I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool." Like, so I asked him what he did. He said, "Well, I'm a programmer, right? I do coding for this company, and they pay me not in US dollars, not in British pounds, not in GBP. They pay me in Ether." And he told me his first paycheck was 380 Ether, so 380 Ethereum. Back then, the price of Ether was quite low, so you can work it up. Today's price is 200 and maybe 250 or above, or 260, right? USD per Ether. So his first paycheck was 380 Ether, right? So you work out the math, how much that is. And so they pay him his wages in Ether every month. And he lives in Australia, right? He doesn't have a bank account in Australia. And he would go to these meetups, right? And he would just, every time he needed cash, he would just sell some of his Ether at these meetups. at these crypto meetups, and he would get some Australian dollars to then spend for his food, for his rent, for his entertainment and all that. So I thought that was a very cool, a very cool alternative lifestyle, right? And then the more I looked into it, so it shows. I mean, obviously now with the virus, it's actually there's no travel, right? But pre-coronavirus, that was very much the trend, right? Like the young were skilled, right? They're skilled in a skill that was portable. They could go to any country and still do that job. It didn't matter where they were situated. They could just do their job and still get paid. They could get paid easily, right? Because if his company was in the US, then he would have had to have a US bank account, right? Then they have to bank the money into the US bank account, or they had to TT it over to his British account, in England, his English account, and then he'd probably have an ATM that he would then put into a local ATM in Australia to then get local Australian dollars out, and he'll get charged probably not very good rates and probably get fees, right, for withdrawing money overseas. So by cutting all that, they just sent him Ether and he got it straight away. And he just had to go to a local meetup and he would get his cash, his spending money. So I thought this was a very cool case study, right? I was like, wow, so this is what the world is evolving to. And back then, like 2016, 2017, I thought that was just what a cool story to tell, right? Okay, so now coming back to this story. So this Mariano Conti. So what so I assume that he also gets paid in Ether, right? So he believes strongly that Ether was going to go up in price, and he believed that it was going to become more and more valuable in time. So to him, that was his asset. I mean, a lot of us have investment assets, right? We can have property, we can have stocks, some might even have crypto, right? And a lot of us actually do this, right? You can actually do your property, you bought it, it was at a X price. Now it's gone up 2 times or 3 times. So some people do a refinance, right, to unlock the value in their property to then get extra cash to either invest or spend or as an emergency fund, right? So if you think about it, banks, what do they take for collateral? They only take properties. And I suppose you can do some margin financing with some shares, right? And so, you can imagine the application process for that as well, right? It's quite a pain in the neck. So, so here he is. He wanted to take a car loan, right? But he didn't want to lose his investments because he didn't want to have to sell the investments, get the cash, and then pay for the car. He wanted to take a loan against it because he believed that his assets, the asset that he was holding, which is Ether, was going to go up. So what he did was he pledged his Ether as collateral, right? I'm going to see. Okay, yeah. So this is like, what? How do you draw a loan from? Like, how does he draw a loan from himself? How does he use his own assets as collateral? And how does he pay himself back? What does that even mean, right? So how do we get here? Now, I'm gonna take a step back, right? So I'm gonna take you back down memory lane, okay? Now there's a very famous book called The Lexus and the Olive Tree, right? This was written by he was actually a reporter and an author. His name is Thomas Friedman. Now, I read this when I was fresh out of uni, right? So I read this in probably 2000, right? And I found it very interesting and very exciting. And in fact, it has actually played out to what the author predicted back then, right, on globalization. So this says, right, so in the book it says so he talked about three trends, right? So the first one was the democratization of technology. Then the next one was the democratization. Sorry, that was Siri. The second one was the democratization of information. And the third was the democratization of finance, right? So let's talk about technology. So he says that the democratization of technology is the result of several innovations that came together in the 1980s, right? Involving computerization, telecommunications, miniaturization, compression technology, and digitization, right? So can you imagine back in the day? I think last week I showed a picture of what a really, one of the first computers were like, right? And right today, your phone is more powerful than that huge computer. So it's that the miniaturization has happened, and now you can actually have that power in your pocket, right? So the talk about the democratization of technology is this, right? Back then, nobody could afford a computer, right? Then in the early 80s and 90s, you remember Bill Gates said that his dream was to have a desktop on every table, right? In every home, a computer in every home. So that was his dream. I mean, right now, we've got more than one, right? And people hardly use desktops unless they really have to. They have several devices. They have their iPads. They got their phones. They got their laptops. They got a few laptops, right? One for home, one for work. They've got so much computing power. So back then, technology wasn't so easy to come by, right? And it was expensive, right? It was very expensive, and it wasn't widespread. So he believed that the democratization of technology, right, would spread, meaning everyone would be able to get hold of this technology, of tech, right? So technology democratized access to the internet and communication, right? So progress. Think of this, right? Progress is democratization, right? The internet democratized access to information, right? Now, can you imagine back in the day, some of the older ones like myself would remember, you could buy the Britannica encyclopedia, right? You would have volumes and volumes on the bookshelf, and it was very expensive. And that's where knowledge was. Knowledge was a privilege, right? Not everyone had access to knowledge before the internet, right? I mean, you can also think of it as the commoditization of knowledge, right? Or the democratization of knowledge. I mean, when the internet came about, knowledge was no longer privileged. Knowledge was now democratized. Everyone had access to knowledge at the tip of your finger. At your fingertips, you can literally, hey, what is this? I don't know. Let's Google it, right? And you Google it, and you get your answer. Back then, you'd have to, is it A, B, C, right? Which alphabet do you start with? Okay, K. You pull it out, and then you look at the index, and you start to search for it, right? And that was how you would get information and get knowledge. Libraries were a big thing, right? Whenever I needed to do research, I would have to go to a library, and then I would have to spend hours there trying to find the books I needed, and bring this stack of books home, right? And then go through it, right, to write my research paper. So progress is democratization. Democratization, right, is the elimination or the removal of gatekeepers. So remember, I said that knowledge was privilege. Knowledge was privilege, right? So in order for you to have knowledge, well, you needed to have more money, because you needed money to buy those, to buy the encyclopedia. But today, to Google for something, it's not going to cost you anything, right? I mean, obviously, it's going to cost you your mobile phone plan and all that, but it's essentially on tap, right? Knowledge on tap. Now, here's another one, right? So democratization is decentralization. Now, you hear the word decentralization being, the decentralization of something, or a decentralized network. So democratization is decentralization, right? Meaning, so you go from central authority decides, right, to everyone can have a say, right? So they tell you what to do, or everyone kind of decides what to do together, right? So that is democratization. Now, so what does this mean? This means that you now have lower barriers of entry, right? And you now have greater access, right? So you'll hear this word decentralization being used a lot in crypto. It's essentially the same as democratization, right? It's something that's been democratized. So now the democratization or decentralization, right, has transformed so many industries, right? Except for I'll let you decide on that, right? So if you look at retail, right, you look at Alibaba, you look at Amazon, you even look at eBay, right? eBay is not so popular in Malaysia. It's Lazada and all that, right? So anyone can be a seller, right? Before that, what were your barriers to entry? You would have to rent a shop. You need you have to find a shop. You have to hire some contractors to actually fit out your shop, right? That's going to cost you money. So the barriers to entry back then was capital. And even then, even after you've opened your shop, what else was a barrier? Well, your potential customers were basically geographical based, right? Because you would service a certain geographical area. But with the internet, right, with the democratization of technology, where everyone's got a pocket computer, they can shop on the go. They can shop while they're on the bus or having lunch or whatever. They can shop. So now you've significantly lowered the barriers to entry because what do you need to get into retail? Well, you just need an Amazon account or an Alibaba account, right? And you can essentially just work out of your home, right? Or out of anywhere. Then if we look at transportation, right? You have Uber and Grab, right? Where anyone can be a driver, right? Essentially, where we came from was a centrally controlled. So this is the concept of democratization and decentralization. You came from one where you had to be part of something, right? I mean, obviously, you still had to be part of Uber, right? But you just download the app and you just use your own car, right? And obviously, you look at entertainment. You'd be surprised, right? So anyone can be an artist or a celebrity, right? How many times have you heard, I'm an Instagram model, But hey, don't laugh, right? They make money, right? I'm a YouTuber. Yeah, people get paid a lot of money to be full-time YouTubers, right?
Yeah, even that remember that the Indian lady was cooking, and then it got a lot of views, and then also get some money from the ads as well, right?
Yes,
so
yes.
So YouTubing now is also a way to generate income. I mean, people are earning millions of dollars. I'm talking about those really good influencers, right?
They are, and in fact, you'd be surprised now. Many of you probably who don't play games won't know what Twitch is, but Twitch, you'll be surprised, has more viewers than Netflix. And people actually, So Twitch, for those who know, right? If you go on Twitch, it's essentially watching the person who's playing a game and watching his screen, right? That and then they're live streaming like what we're doing now, right? They're live streaming and they're playing games. You get to watch their reactions. You get to watch their emotional roller coasters up and down, right? It's actually quite, I mean, for some reason, we humans find it very entertaining, right? You'll see someone get shot in PUBG and they'll just grab their, they'll grab their oops. Oops. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, they'll grab their keyboard and they start smashing their monitor and stuff. So people like that. And you hear of things like those who are into gaming, things like swatting, right? Someone who's really angry with someone else, they will call into dial 000 and say that there's a criminal in a certain house once they find out where it is. And they just watch it get streamed live as the SWAT team breaks down their front door, comes in with machine guns and everything, and just arrests the guy. So that's known as swatting. So people find that entertaining, right? So that's totally transformed. Let me just go back to the present. Yeah, that's totally transformed the entertainment industry. Now, can you imagine Netflix, right? Now, Netflix is global, is worldwide. So is Twitch. So all of a sudden, from being limited to your geographical offering, you are now open to the world, right? So yeah. Now, what about finance? How has finance been democratized, or has finance been democratized? I don't know. What do the viewers think? Does anyone think that finance has been democratized because now you can have a touch and go app, or you can have a Grab Pay app? Is that it? Like, what else has happened in that industry that has truly democratized it or transformed it? Right. So that's the question. Okay, Back to the Future. Now we go back to Mariano Conti and how he got his car loan. Okay, so that was just to give context to the viewers on where we've come from. Now, there's a term in crypto called DeFi, right? I guess it's a clever play on words, right? It's decentralized finance, and the synonym, right, of DeFi, right? It sounds like DeFi, right? DEFY, right? To go against, right? So it sounds like DeFi. Now, with DeFi, so this is where firms like you've seen phrases on the internet, right? If you Google it, where it says software is eating the world, right? That's actually quite a common phrase on the internet if you Google it, right? In fact, I think I saw one also from 𝐂𝐿𝐴 which is 𝐿𝐴ndreessen Horowitz. They're a VC firm, right? They also say, look, software is eating. I watched one of their talks where they said that software is eating the world. Now, what does that mean? That means with software gives you so much power these days that you can literally change the world. I'm gonna pause for a while, right? Like, if you think about it, technology. So we go back to the democratization of technology, right, which led to the democratization of information. That has truly changed the way we live our lives, for the better or for the worse. That one is for us to judge, right? I mean, back when I was a kid, right? Entertainment for me was bottle caps and maybe play some guli, right? We'll play some marbles and like just simple. And I'd be happy to get out and just go cycling, right? And be outdoors. But what is entertainment to kids these days? It's they are bombarded left, right, and center. They've got so much. I mean, they can play games with their friends. The other day, I saw my son in front of the so in front of the TV, right? He was holding the Apple TV remote control and he was dancing, right? And apparently he was having a competition against 3 other people from I don't know where, right? And it was a dance competition, right? So like things have really changed. Like so from the from globalization to the democratization of technology, which led to the democratization of information, right? It has changed society, the fabric of society, in so many ways. I mean, you think about it. There's been cultural changes, right? Culturally, where we are today from where we were 20 years ago was so different. There's been societal changes, right? Society has changed as a whole. Right now, we prefer to stay home and tap a few taps and food arrives in your front door, right? Compared to having to go out and get food and all that. That there's been so many economic impacts, right? Obviously, especially in the tech sector, and also political. There's been political impacts as well. If you Google for the term the Arab Springs, right? You remember it's when a lot of the countries, were rebelling against their government, all brought on because there was free flow of information, right? And then there was technology as well that led to it. So that whether it's good or whether it's bad, I mean, it's had its impacts, right? So okay, so right now with software, right, it says that DeFi, anyone can be a bank. What does that mean, right? So if anyone understands the banking system, right, and its function, essentially the bank, you can go to your bank to deposit money, right? Um, or you can go to a bank to borrow money, right? So essentially, they facilitate that. Now, obviously, if you study economics, you know that there's this thing known as a multiplier effect, right? So it's a fractional reserve banking. For example, for every dollar that you deposit in the bank, they can lend out $11, for example, right? For every dollar they have, they can lend out $11. So they facilitate that. They pay you an interest rate for leaving your money in the bank, and then the borrower then pays the bank an interest rate, for borrowing the money. And obviously, there's a difference there, and banks, that's how banks make their money, right? Obviously, they do it through fees and all that as well. So right now, with a DeFi app, it's saying that anyone can be a bank. Now, obviously, this is for educational purposes only. I'm not saying go ahead and do it, because I don't think Bank Negara approves of this, right? But I'm just educating the audience to let you know what is actually happening around the world today, right? So look, we're still in extremely, extremely early stages. It is still in experimental. Therefore, let's see where this goes and how this goes, right? What it's saying is that with a DeFi, well, with DeFi, right? You can deposit your money, right? And you can also take out a loan, but you don't have to do it through an intermediary. You don't have to do it through a bank. You can do it through software, essentially. All you need is your mobile phone. You need some software, some app installed on it, and you need an internet connection. And all that can happen, right? Think of this. Now, remember when I asked you, how many of you love and enjoy your banking experience? That banking experience, this is another type of banking experience, but without a bank, obviously, right? So what then takes the place of a bank when this happens? It's the software, right? So it is your software, your app that's interacting with another software, right? That's on the internet. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through, right? You can lend money, right? You can collect interest. You can also borrow money, and you pay interest, and obviously you pay back the principal, right? The interest rates are then adjusted automatically, right, based on supply and demand, right? So software handles all that. So if you've got more depositors, right, then obviously the interest that you earn as a depositor will be lower, right? And obviously, if there are more borrowers, then you earn higher interest rates, because they can also then charge, right? So it's based on supply and demand. And obviously, so back to Mariano Conti. Now, Mario Conti wanted to buy a car. He wanted to buy a car in Argentina. Now, for those of you who have lived long enough, you know that Argentina didn't do so well, and there is deep mistrust for their banks and the banking system in Argentina. and that was the reason why he didn't want to go to a bank to do his transactions through a bank. So what he did was, he had a lot of Ether, because obviously he was working and he was getting paid in Ether, and he believed that his Ether was worth more than his pesos, in Argentina. And so what he had to do was he collateralized his Ether with the bank, which is actually a software. And this software in DeFi, it's known as a smart contract, right? So he collateralized it, and he over collateralized it, right? So he collateralized 300% worth, so 30,000. So his car was 10,000, but he had $30,000 worth of Ether. He collateralized it. It got locked into a smart contract, which means he can't have access to it. He can't take it back until he has paid back his loan. So what it does then is, this smart contract mints, right, and creates what's known as a stable coin in crypto terms. Essentially, it's called DAI, D-A-I. Why does it sound so bad? Apparently, DAI stands for Dai-Quan. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but in China, it was inspired by the Chinese word Dai-Quan, or Dai-Quan, I think, like to borrow or to lend, right? And then it then released $10,000 worth of DAI to him. So now he has 10,000 DAIs. He then cashed it out and used that money, cashed it out into pesos, right? And then he used that to buy his car, right? He got his Ford Focus. Then obviously he has a day job, right? So he works, and after that he saved up enough to then pay for the pay the loan back with interest, and then it released his collateral, which is his ether, back to him. Now think about this. Now this is something that is like out there, right? Like, for people who are used to the banking system, you're like, what the hell? Like, how is that even possible? But look, this is a real life example, right? He actually did it. And this is just one of the very firsts, right? There will be many, many more. Just like recently we celebrated, the Bitcoin Pizza Day. That one, for those who's within the circle, this is a story when this person paid for 2 pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin. So back then, per Bitcoin was not worth so much. Right? So he paid for 2 pizzas with 10,000 Bitcoin. And how much is Bitcoin today? Around 10,000 bucks a Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, so they eat one of the most expensive pizzas.
Yeah, that's right. So this is like one of those examples where they literally now, if you were to go to your bank, right, and let's say you had some investments and you had some crypto, you say, hey, can I pledge this as collateral to borrow some money? The bank will say, yeah, don't be silly, right? Go play far away, right? But this is happening now, and this, right, obviously can be done by anyone, anywhere who has a phone, right? Some app installed on it, and access the internet, right? And it can be done. Oh, obviously you need to have collateral, you need to have ether, right? So can you imagine that? So this is what was meant, where he says he needed to borrow money, so he pledged his ether to himself. It's to himself, because he's just interacting with a software, right? So now you've got this intermediary, which is a bank. It's been bypassed, right? The intermediary's been bypassed, and you just have software that's interacting with software, right? And then eventually, when you paid it back, he got his ether back. So that was that story. So decentralized borrowing, right? You're borrowing against your own deposited collateral. Bankers or banks are replaced by smart contracts in a decentralized borrowing, right? Now, all this is also transparent because, we're talking about the blockchain. We're talking about a public blockchain, which means all you need, again, is a browser. You need access to the internet, and you can see exactly what's happening on the blockchain, right? You also see the interest rates, the deposit rates live as it happens, right? Because everything that is on a public blockchain is transparent. So, I mean, you can imagine this, right? Now you have zero human intervention, right? Everything is transparent. Like, what you see is as it is, right? Even the software to write that code, because there's this thing called open source software. If you have the skills to read the code, even that is transparent, right? Because then that is also made available for anyone with the skill to then read it. Now, how transparent can you be? Like, this is it's almost like a dream come true, right? So these are the infrastructures that are currently being built, right? Remember, I talked about the democratization of technology, which led to the democratization of information, and now that third part that Thomas Friedman talked about was the democratization of finance. Now, when he wrote that book, in the 90s, right? What he meant about the democratization of finance was free flows of capital, free flows of money globally, right? At one stage, Malaysia had to peg the ringgit to the US dollar because the free flows were causing us some problems with our exchange rates, right? So he was talking about the free flows of money. Now, this just accelerated it by like 1,000 times, right? Can you imagine now it's just bits and bytes and an internet connection and software, right? This just accelerated it. Now, when you talk about decentralized finance, right, there are also these things known as decentralized exchanges. You've got brokers, exchanges, operators, regulators. These are institutions put in place, right, in order to facilitate the exchange of securities. So, for example, I want to buy some shares in Maybank or buy some shares in Nestle. You would log on to your broker, or these days you log on, right? Back in the day, you would call your remisier, right? Some people still do, right? And say you want to buy so much or sell so much, right? Then after that, you have to write a check and then give it to your broker, and you pay for the shares that you've bought, or you get paid for the shares that you've sold. Again, right? Software is eating the world. You've got these smart contracts that are coming in, and you've got software that facilitates exchange of right now they call it coins, right? Exchange of coins, but you can think of it exchange of tokens. It's like let's say me and Benny. So Benny has some Maybank shares, and I've got some Nestle shares, and we want to exchange. So traditionally, what you do is you go on. Benny would buy Nestle shares. I will go and buy Maybank shares and maybe sell some Nestle shares to pay for the Maybank shares, right? Benny would do the same. But essentially, on a decentralized thing, the software becomes the exchange, right? And it just matches what Benny wants to sell and what I want to sell and buy, and matches it, and then the tokens are exchanged, right? And it's all handled by software. So okay, conscious of time, so I'm going to speed this up. I think I got a few more, right? So you got so today's financial infrastructure, so operational costs of a traditional bank takes up to about 60% of its revenue, right? And on in the DeFi space, right, automates most banking functions, including issuance, payment, lending, right? Highly regulated today, right? And then with DeFi, because it's so new and no one knows what's going on, right now anyone can write a DeFi app, right, without going through red tape or the proper channels, right? Obviously, there's a lot of scams that can happen as well, right? Today's financial infrastructure, there's no access into the bank's internal processes. In DeFi, is fully transparent. You get to see every single bit and part of the process, right? You have trusted players that restrict and regulate, right? Custody, transfer, and exchange. And the DeFi side, it's censorship resistant and control. So therefore, it's almost like yin and yang, right? It's like yin and yang right now. So democratization of finance, is it possible? I don't know, maybe, right? Right now, still extremely early days. It is still being experimented. But mind you, while it's being experimented, there's I think there's the other day I read there's probably, it's still small, right? Maybe about $1 billion or so US dollars, right? And more coming in, right? It's more coming in because as the software matures, processes get better, right? They iron out more bugs, they figure out how to make it better, right? And as with anything, like you look at the internet 20 years ago, 25 years ago to use it, and where we're using it today is just so much easier. So right, it can only get better. So if it ain't broke, why fix it? Well, while credit cards and loans are something modern countries take for granted, half the global population still don't have active bank accounts. I could probably share a story about that, but I'll leave that for another day because I think we're probably running out of time. Many people continue to pay substantial, intermediary fees, right, to make transactions. So an example here, wire transfer from the US can now encounter a fee as high as 56% as it passes through from dollars to Venezuelan bolivars, a process that lasts several weeks, right? So this is one is expensive, two it takes too long, right? Whereas literally with software, internet, and a phone, you can do it almost instantly, right? So why not? Why wouldn't you? Look, DeFi widens consumer choice, right? So DeFi has a variety of platforms and apps and services and areas that will serve different functions, right? As part of that solution. So the takeaway is this, right? And this is from Charles Darwin. Just a quote, and I quote this quite often, and I quote the same. The other person I quote a lot is Alvin Toffler, right? Who's a futurist. It says, it's not the strongest who survive, it's those who are most adaptable to change. Now, change is definitely happening, whether you choose to see it or not, right? And I hope that after watching this today, you see it's actually happening, and this is real, right? It's not fake. It's definitely happening. It's just that you want to see it earlier so that you can, armed with certain knowledge, you can take full advantage of what you know, right? Or at least you can position yourself. What they say, the early bird gets the worm, right? You're early, right? You want to be able to know what's coming your way, right? At least you know what's coming, right? Rather than take the ostrich approach, right? The head in the sand approach. So, will you be ready for the future of finance? Right. So, okay. I guess that comes to the end of it. Just wanted you to know that next week, all right, we have actually a very special guest. He'll be dialing in from New York, and he's actually from a very interesting DeFi project, right? That I've actually been following. And full disclosure, I have also I've also invested in, right? So it's a very interesting DeFi project. And tune in next week, right, to see what they've done, because I'm very impressed with what they've done. And it's going to change it's going to make the DeFi infrastructure even better and even stronger, and even more interoperable. Okay, and that concludes my my presentation. I'm gonna unshare now.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Andrew. I'm glad to have known you, because you are like the updates for the future, right? Because as a guy who has been in traditional or conservative, or old-fashioned, you can say it, right? Where we are so used to the old economy, we are always very skeptical of what's happening, right? Even like you're talking about DeFi, and what's going to happen to the banks, right? Our banking is going to collapse if this is going to take part. And the whole economy will not be able to sustain, because people will be out of jobs. Now it's going to be replaced by robots or softwares. At first, in the earlier stage, yes, I was more skeptical. But right now we are seeing things happen, right? Because things don't happen just overnight. Like for example, when the ATM machine came in, we thought cannot work one, people will be out of job. How many tellers are going to be out of job, right? But you're really seeing this happening, right? And when we talk about even let's say investing, right? We talk about online trading, and right now remisers are getting out of business, right? We're thinking no way no way that remisers can actually lose their jobs, right? In the whole economy, but it is happening, right? So we are seeing things really happening, and I don't know, in my lifetime or in our lifetime, we'll be able to see that one day banks do not exist anymore, and maybe just DeFi, right?
Well, I think banks will never go out of fashion. I think banks will exist. Like I said, it's almost like a yin and yang thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, so I think it's good to be open about this, because really, right? Because you're looking in the future, like Andrew have said, we really have to be prepared for it, right? Even for me, when I look at this, if my children wants to be an engineer, maybe I'll tell him no, maybe engineer is not the way to go anymore, right? Or maybe software engineering, right? I really, if you look at the trend, I think maybe Andrew, you can also do one session later on where the trend is going, right? And where more professional, where are the skills going to, right? Even like I just came out from a MPOC. Actually, there's a conference, it's an online conference. Never before they have done that, right? but it was boring like crazy lah, So, but even right now, robots, especially in China, they are trying to replace workers. People to go and bring the fruits down. They're using robots, right? And we think that cannot how to replace these guys, right? And these robots are more efficient than the guys because they can work 24 hours a day, right? Non-stop working as long as you put in oil and or battery or whatever, they can work, right? So these are really happening even in the traditional business, right? Plantation. So it's really crazy, that's why I say, Andrew, you really open up the minds, and I hope that you guys will also think that way as well, right? Try to be open, try to look forward, because what Andrew has done is to look outside of Malaysia, right? I mean, in Malaysia, Andrew, you say about DeFi. I mean, you're talking about democratic. That's a mouthful to say, lah. Democratization, right? Of finance. We are seeing it happening, like things like peer-to-peer lending and crowdfunding. But this has already been done in overseas, probably in the US and Europe, like maybe 30 or 40 years ago, right? And so the Western country has gone way far way far ahead of us, and we are just basically starting only, right? So it's really good. I mean, what you're doing, Andrew, to actually bring us updates what's happening outside as well. Okay, so let's look at we'll take a look at questions, and that's the reason why we think our crypto session is important. Share this with your friends if you really want to see what's going to happen or what's happening around the whole global market. Like I said, don't just be a katak di bawah tempurung, right? Be open-minded and get more updated, because this thing will hit you, right? I mean, hit me without us knowing, right? So we better know at least what's happening. All right. So let's take a look at questions. Okay, there's a question here from actually Cheong Lisa. I'm just going to put the question out so you can see also. Okay, here says there are sayings out there that central banks will go and wipe out anything which will threaten fiat money, including gold and crypto. What's your thought on this?
Look, if I were a central bank, I'd do the same. I mean, look, if you were in any business, you would try to wipe out your competition, and that's normal. And crypto feels like a very bottom up, like it feels like a people. It's a movement. I feel it's a movement, right? So there are enough people. I mean, look, if you just look back even up to the last GFC, the last global financial crisis, right? What was Occupy Wall Street about? Occupy Wall Street was because people were very angry that Wall Street or these big fat banks were getting bailed out while the people were left to rot and die, right? In fact, today you see, look, the global market economy has come to a standstill for 3 months, right? And look, there are riots breaking out in America already. I mean, yes, it was about obviously back, it was because that George Floyd was died from police brutality, but you just needed that spark to kind of spark things off. So I think it's very much a movement from the ground up. And look, if I were a central bank, I would, obviously I would. I'm not big. I wouldn't want crypto. But again, if you look throughout history, it's always been, that's why there are revolutions. But then there are also, so it's really about maintaining that balance, right? People want to feel safe. People want to have enough food in their bellies. They want to have a roof over their head, right? They want to have their family safe. If you threaten any of those things, then people have nothing to lose, and that's the worst that can happen. Obviously, with what's happening today, they said that Main Street and Wall Street, right, seems to be going different directions, right? You've got all these businesses closing down, people losing their jobs. The economy is not doing that well. But then you've got crazy valuations. We're almost close. The other night, Daniel was on, and he says that we're close to Dow Jones all-time high, right? Yeah. So, and in the meantime, you've got all these. You've got the central banks that are printing like a lot of money, right? There's a lot of money creation. And what happens when there's a lot of money creation and interest rates are close to zero? In economics, it's called a liquidity trap, right? You've got all this money and you've got this cheap money for too long, in hope that it would spur investments, right, into the economy. But then when it doesn't, it's not put into productive investments. Like instead of, if I've got a big loan for 0%, right? And you know that the economy is not doing so well, should I actually be investing in building new plant and equipment, buying new plant and equipment, or should I just maybe do a share buyback and increase the value of my shares? So it's actually very interesting what's happening today, right? And obviously, people feel threatened, right? So they take certain action. So when you have this sudden supply of money supply, so you have inflation of money, which of money volume, right? Which means whatever you have decreases, the value of your money decreases. And when that happens, what happens is that people try to allocate that money, right, your capital allocation, into more things that would counter that devaluation of their currency. So they'll put that into assets like, whatever assets they can have, they get their hands on. So some people believe it's crypto assets. Some people believe it's Bitcoin because there's limited amount. Some people will buy gold. So if you look at the price of gold, it's actually been going up as well. So yes, as a central bank, but if you think about it, if you're a central bank, what else can you do to stimulate the economy? Because deflation is an even worse thing that can happen. So if and there's a modern there's this thing called modern monetary theory, right, MMT, where they just have to basically keep propping up the economy, right, in order for it to not go into deflation, because deflation will be even worse. So look, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? So they just have to basically ensure that we don't go into deflation.
Yeah, I guess maybe because all of these guys who are running the banks and even central banks, they are still from, even one generation above us or two generations above us, right? But imagine one day the young ones, right, who are now born in the technology will start to be in the central banks and banks. Imagine what will happen, right, with this kind of knowledge. So that's one thing. That's a food for thought, lah. Right? Okay, we got the next.
If I can add, Benny, it'll be interesting because look, it would only take, if it happens, because right now the reserve currency of the world obviously is the US dollar, right? That's why they can keep printing, but they will maintain their value because there's enough demand outside of the US for the US dollar. Now, it only takes one or two central banks to say, hey, you know what? Why don't I go for an apolitical, that means an apolitical currency like Bitcoin? Look, this is like utopia, right? If it will ever happen, to say, hey, rather than keep US dollar as a reserve currency, what if we kept Bitcoin, right? If you see one central bank doing it, two central banks doing it, then I think the rest of the central banks don't want to miss out, because it's like there's only limited supply, right? There's going to be a limited supply, but look, who knows? I mean, central bank buying Bitcoin, maybe not while I'm alive, lah.
Maybe not, right? I mean, even like the market is actually anticipating. Remember, Facebook wanted to create their own coins, right, called Libra, and of course, all the people that in governments are basically trying not to let him bring that up, right? So definitely, I think you will see things like this where they suppress people who actually want to take. I think they see, like you said, like Lisa said, it's a threat to basically their own economy as well, right? But do you think you'll see more of this happening, and eventually they will have to give in?
Look, my dream is that one or two central banks decide that Bitcoin is gonna be an apolitical, meaning it's not aligned to any government, meaning no one country in the world can actually print more of it and take that as a better reserve currency than, say, another country's currency. Look, to me, it makes logical sense, right? There's limited supply, and it's apolitical, so there's no there's no country that actually owns Bitcoin because it belongs to everyone and it belongs to no one. So it would be the perfect thing to have, right? A reserve currency to have. But unfortunately, I don't run a central bank, so not up to me lah.
Yeah. I mean, do you think China will be a front runner for this? I mean, do you get any updates from China? Because we just recently read last week, right, that China is now even putting cryptocurrencies into their school education syllabuses. So and China, because they themselves is a socialist, government, right? It's a communist government where everybody is supposed to have equal. With the kind of ideology itself will probably be. Of course, they're very centralized, but because they actually want to be also, everybody is being treated equally, right? But do you think China can be a front runner for this?
Look, it's interesting, right? I mean, because earlier you mentioned Libra, right? So Mark Zuckerberg was summoned, right? And he had to answer the questions to the Senate. Yeah. And he talked about China. He says, hey, look, America's got to get into this game. Otherwise, we're going to let China take over. But I think they're probably looking at a central bank digital currency, right? So it'll still be controlled by the Chinese central bank. But I do know that China is one of the big contenders for digital, CBDCs are they called, right? Central bank digital currencies. Whether they will take on one that they cannot control, it'll be interesting. That'll be interesting whether they'll do that or not. Yeah.
But they are definitely they're one of the movers as well, right? China in the crypto world itself.
Yeah, they definitely are. A lot of innovators, a lot of innovation is actually coming out of China, especially in this crypto space. Some of the largest centralized crypto exchanges are out of China. You've got the likes of Huobi, Binance, OKEX. These are all Chinese ones they're pretty large. What's interesting is that what you might see happen, right? You've got the CBDC, so central bank digital currencies. Then I don't know, depending on how it goes in terms of legislation, right? You get these big companies like Facebook, right, who owns WhatsApp, right? And there's so many WhatsApp users around the world, where you now have a company-based currency, right? You got country-based, right, central bank. Then you might have a company-based currency, which is already happening. Look at the GrabPay, look at Touch and Go, right? These are company-based digital currencies. And then you have this one like Bitcoin as the people's currency, right? It's almost like you've got three types of currencies: central bank, company-based, company currencies, and then you have these cryptocurrencies, right, which is the people's currency, by the people for the people. So it's quite interesting. So controlled by a central bank, controlled by a company, controlled by no one and everyone. So it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting.
Okay, I guess we only have time for maybe 2 more questions. I think these 2 questions are quite interesting. One is from our friend Stephen Chia.
Yes.
And the other one I think is equally interesting as well as the last question that comes in. But let's take a look at Stephen's question first, right? Because the biggest hurdle to DeFi or DEX is regulatory restrictions, right? So what would it take for it to happen? Or will it be like WhatsApp, Uber, Airbnb, where mass adoptions will replace traditional centralized methods?
Yeah, look, I think a lot. Obviously, we don't advocate breaking the law, right? In the country that you're in, we just don't recommend you breaking the law at all. And obviously, there will be regulations, there will be restrictions. Don't break the law. But whether or not people follow it, for example, I mean, like in Venezuela, you've got people who are so hungry and so poor they don't have food, right? Where they will, where the Bitcoin in Venezuela, where Bitcoin mining is banned, they will smuggle the Bitcoin machines right into the country, and they will mine Bitcoin, and they use their Bitcoin to then order food to get delivered to the border of the country. They will then go across the border to then smuggle food back in. So there are those who will be desperate enough to do things, right? And like the story I told earlier about Mariano, right? On where he was from, he wanted to buy a car in Argentina, and he didn't trust the Argentinian banks, right? So and it's probably totally outlawed there, right? And yet there's still some people who are willing to take the risk because they just don't trust wherever it is that they're from. So look, we do not advocate that you break any laws. But obviously, some people are desperate enough that they will go ahead and do those things. And to them, it's probably because they've got nothing else to lose, right? So they would. It's a matter of survival. It's like, I break the law and I live for another day, or I follow the law and die. Right. So I guess for those people, they have no choice. And to actually have software that can actually help another human life, I think that's it's a good thing. I mean, you, in the eyes of the law in that country, you might be breaking the law, but it's gonna save some lives. And I think anything that makes it easier to save human lives and make human lives better, it's there,
Right.
it would, yeah.
Okay. All right. So one last question for the show. We have from Maya Smith. Since we are in the COVID period, right? Because the economy has slowed down and people are out of jobs and so on and so forth. How do you think, right, that DeFi can assist and prop the global economic recovery and job creation? What role do you think they can play if, let's say, we have another crisis gonna happen in the future?
That's a fantastic story. Look, from what I see, like, if you remember the dot-com boom, right? The dot-com boom attracted a lot of brilliant minds into Silicon Valley and into IT, right? I remember when I graduated from my computer science degree, I was at that point, everybody wanted to study computer science, and then the dot-com bubble burst, right? Then it was difficult to find a job. Look, I think right now, especially so now, in where the entire world has just come crashing down. The economies have come crashing down, and it's just paused and at a standstill. You find that certain industries are not affected. For example, if you had some coding skills, I'm sure you've heard of the gig economy, right? You can actually go online and do a gig, right? You can code something up and get paid for it. You can go online. There are websites out there where you can be a mentor and teach people how to code, for example. And how would you get paid? Look, get paid in Bitcoin, get paid in Ether, right? It's so easy. You just set up your wallet, get them to send you whatever amount equivalent, and then you can do that. Obviously, as they open up the airways and stuff, and you can start maybe selling stuff, right? You can use. I mean, obviously, you can get paid in whatever coins it is. Then DeFi, you can use that. If you choose to keep it, let's say you got paid in Ether, and like Mariano, if you choose to keep it, and you needed cash for something, you could pledge it, right? You can take a loan out, right? But if you choose to just sell it and just take the ringgit, because now you can, because in Malaysia there are three digital asset exchanges that are now regulated by the Securities Commission. So it's fully legit, right? Everything is above board. You can go in there and sell your Ether, and pay for whatever bills and buy whatever you want. So I think how will it prop up the global economic recovery? Look, I think we're in a space where there are actually a lot of jobs out there, right? But it is not in the traditional sense that you're used to, where you get paid a salary and you go in every day, right? It's very much a gig economy, right? People go into a portal, people hire you for a job, you do the job, you get paid, and then you move on to the next project. I think there's a lot of that happening right now. And the traditional sense of a job where you get paid a salary and all that, that one might be a little bit more difficult. But you never know, right? You never know.
All right, all right. I guess one of the things that DeFi can do as well is because people are already in pain, right? They probably need cash and so on and so forth, and going to the banks is probably gonna get you more debts, and you have to pay high interest and so on, right? And one of the things that if let's say the banks as middlemen who makes most of the money, right? You say the operational cost itself is actually like 60% of the whole revenue itself. And these costs can be cut and given back to the users, right? So if I'm going to borrow money, probably instead of paying like say 7% interest, I do not know the interest currently, but as time goes by, you probably only need to pay maybe like 1 or 2% interest, right? Or maybe even below 1%, right? So that itself, I think, can help people can help the economy itself, right? When people needs money, right? So yeah, I think we have gone over time. The Mandarin session is starting right now. So if you guys are interested in the Mandarin session, you can hop on now. But before we leave, I'm just gonna do an announcement. Tomorrow, we have a session on for business, especially for business and entrepreneurs. We have Peter Wee, who was with us yesterday, right? From MBAN. He himself is a business person, so he has this thing called design thinking. All right, which enables entrepreneurs to have a easier process to innovate, right? Especially in times of crisis like this. So tomorrow he will be with us online. So if you have any business friends or entrepreneur friends, or you yourself is a businessman, please join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. and we'll be able to interact and have a discussion with Peter. All right. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us tonight. Andrew, thanks again for your update. Okay. All right. And
Thanks for joining us, guys.
yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good evening.
All right. Good night.